to be demonstrating how to utilize decorative trims. These two pillows are both going to finish at 12 inches by 20. So I've cut them with 3/4 inch seam allowances. So I've cut them at 13.5 by 21.5. For this pillow, I'll be using a 9/16 inch braid cord with a lip. This can be challenging at the join and also at the seam line. It creates a lot of bulk. So instead of a zipper, I'm going to show you how to hand sew it closed. In this pillow, I'll be using a brush fringe. Although it's very easy to join, the challenge comes when you pull this cord and it gets all fluffy. So instead of putting the zipper right at the bottom, I'm going to set the zipper 2 to 3 inches up from the edge. And although it's not at the bottom, this is professionally acceptable because it's a nicer looking finish. Tapering the corners. And marking the centers. For the pillow with the brush fringe, I've already cut both the front and the back. Now I need to cut the piece at the bottom that will create a placket below the zipper. And this is a good opportunity to show pattern matching. I've laid the back on top, matching up the pattern. And I will mark the edges and the bottom. And move up about 3 inches from that bottom mark. This 3-inch strip will create the zipper placket at the bottom. And when it's all assembled, the top comes down and laps over the zipper, creating a perfect pattern match. So again, I need to mark all of my centers. Top and bottom, left and right. And taper the corners. It's ready to go to the sewing machine. This pillow is prepped and ready to go. I do not need to serge the bottom edges of the front and the back because this will be hand sewn closed and all of the edges will be concealed. What I am going to do is stitch a guideline where I know where to hand sew it closed to the trim. And that will be in the 3/4 inch seam allowance, just a running stitch all along the bottom. I put the stitching line on the back part of the pillow, and on the front part, I will apply the braid cord. I'm starting at the side so that the join will not be bulky and in my way when I hand sew it closed. For this, I'll be using a 1/2 inch welt foot, which has a much larger groove cut out into the bottom to accommodate the bulk of the braid cord. The edge of the cord is approximately halfway up, and I'll be starting a generous amount down from the beginning. This is basting, so we're going to turn our stitch length longer. Rather than pulling the trim around the corner, I'm pushing it in so that when it turns out, it fills out that corner nicely. Heavy trims like these have a tendency to make the fabric pucker because the feed dogs are grabbing the fabric and the presser foot is dragging along the top edge, keeping this nice and smooth. So at each halfway point, I'm lining these up evenly and holding this tight to ensure that this stays nice and flat. Now I'm ready to turn the corner. Pushing all the excess in as much as possible. And here I'm going to stop several inches away so I have plenty of room to overlap the braid. As I approach the end, I want to go past it a couple inches and open up the braid and back tack to set the stitch. That secures the braid so it doesn't come loose and it keeps it where it needs to be. I'm lining up the braid to see which cord needs to be removed to make that nice and smooth. And it looks like it's this one. I'm going to pull it all the way back and under so it's a nice continuous look. This, however, is too bulky to go under the presser foot, so I'm going to switch to a straight foot to go across and secure that stitch. I'll add another stay stitch on the outside of this to secure all these threads before I trim the bulk. Oops, I didn't catch this. I'm going to have to go through again and catch those threads in another stay stitch. The bottom side where I put this the stitching is at the bottom, and I will secure the front and the back at the centers. With just a few pins. I am ready to stitch the front to the back, a couple inches in from the tapered edge. First, I have to change to the welt-work foot. I noticed as I was stitching along that this was having trouble going through the machine. So I've released the pressure on the presser foot so there's not so much pressure on this and it can go through freely. Much better. Check both the front and the back. Make sure there's no puckers or extra stitches and tucks. And it's ready to turn and fill. Cords like these, it's difficult to get through the first time through sometimes. And if you see anything that you don't want to see, turn it back out, send it back to the machine. Do it again. This insert is the same size as the pillow, 12 by 20. Get all of the corners filled. And fluff this up. Nice and full. And now it's easy to see where to fold this over for my seam allowance because I've had that stitch line as my guide. Matching up the center with the front center. Pin these together. I've got it pinned front to back and everything's nice and smooth and evened out, and I'm ready to sew this closed. I'll be using turquoise satin thread in the color matching khaki and a 2.5 inch long tacker. And I prefer to use needles from the Zipper Lady. They are great, have a good hand, they're sturdy, and have a big eye for the thread that I need to use. So unwind what you need, plus some, so that you have a room for a knot and room for the ending. And not the end. To start, I pull this open, the seam allowance open, and bring the needle in to really bury that knot. A ladder stitch is taking a bite through one side, in this case, the braid cord, coming down perpendicular to the fabric, taking a bite, pulling back up perpendicular again to the braid cord and taking a stitch. This creates a ladder effect as you think of the ladder, sides of the ladder, and the rails. and each bite through the fabric is about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch long. It goes pretty fast once you get the hang of it, get into a rhythm. Knot it. I like to wrap the thread around the needle 3 times, pull the needle through, creating the knot, and then taking the needle straight back down through the fabric of several inches, coming out in the body of the pillow, pulling that through, and then snipping this tail. That way that I don't have a short tail that's going to come loose. All done. Looks great. I'm putting the zipper face down along the serged edge, lining up the edges, and keeping the tape inside where the seam allowance will be. And I'm pasting this in place. I removed the bulk, top stitch to create a backstop. Now I'm ready to top stitch the zipper in place, finger pressing the fabric so the fold is along the teeth. Now I'm changing the stitch lengths to more secure stitch. And I'm making sure that my stitch is about 1/8 of an inch away from the fold. So once this is done, I lay it on top of the face piece, matching the centers and the edges. And the top of the back, lining everything up. Now I know it's the right size, and I can easily fold this back to find my pattern match. I'll secure this with a couple pins on the edges. The back is finished and it looks good. And this part laps over, and it's why it's called a lapped zipper. I'm going to open this up now so I don't forget about it later, and it's ready to go to the front. Now we need to attach the trim to the front piece. With a brush fringe, there is a right and a wrong side to stitch with. The side that is stitched to the fabric is very secure and double stitched. Here you can see a white basting stitch. Once we pull that, it releases all of the fabric, all of the threads, so that it's nice and bushy, and it's a brush fringe. So I place the trim on the side of the pillow out of habit, several inches above from the bottom. I'm using a 3/4 inch seam allowance, but I'm putting the trim inset a little from the edge, just so that the stitching, my stitching, is going to just cover the secure stitching of the trim. When I get to the corner, I really want to push a lot of that trim in so that it fills out the corner when the pillow's turned right side out. When I'm almost close together, I can trim off that tape and come over here and really squish this stuff in, push that in so it's nice and full, give that a clip, and finish the ends. Before I stitch this all the way around, I want to double check that my zipper is open, and I need to secure these edges, lining up the zipper tape with just a little back stitch. And since the zipper is inset, it doesn't matter where I start because I'm going to stitch all the way around. But I do want to make sure that I stitch inside, just inside this first stitch line, hiding it. Okay, that might have been the easiest one yet. Ready to turn these corners out. I'm grabbing the brush fringe and pulling out. I'll be using the same size insert as the cover, a 20 by 12. The same size that we used for the previous pillow. Once again, grabbing those corners and pushing them into the corner of the cover. Filling that out and zipping those closed. Lump this up. And the fun part comes to pull the chain stitch. Let's see all that brush fringe come alive. Really fluff this up so it's nice and full. And there's our left zipper closure on the back and the front.